talk tension a little bit. In my needle, I have just a regular sewing thread, but I'm going to make an example of if I needed to match some thread for a project on the back, but all I have is a completely different weight. This is a very thin thread, but it's the right color. So what's going to happen is I'm going to probably need to adjust my tension just a little bit because we're going to get a little bit extra pull on one side where the threads aren't going to look balanced. Now we might not notice that as much in a straight stitch, but we are going to notice it more in a zigzag. So I'm going to set the zigzag really wide, and then I'm going to show you what we're looking for here. All right, so let's say we're going to do needle up. We'll do our cut. There we go. Cut our thread. Okay, so the front looks pretty good, and actually the back looks pretty good too, but you can kind of start to see I've got a little pull of the red thread to the back. And actually, I really don't have any major issues. A little bit on the straight stitch here. I'm seeing a little turquoise coming up to the top. So it kind of depends on what stitch you're working with. Now, if we didn't look really close, we probably wouldn't see this. But if we were on a quilt and we saw turquoise on the top where we didn't want it, because that's why we have maroon thread in the top, we're going to need to do some balancing and kind of offset it. So what are we actually looking for with our tension? So I'm going to zoom back out here and take a look here. So you notice when we're on a zigzag, our tension is slightly less than if we are on a straight stitch. So it goes from 4.4 down to 3.6. That's why we got a little bit more pull around to the back side. So if we're on a straight stitch and we are getting a little bit of the turquoise on the top, what you're going to do is go to the set menu. That's the little button with the pliers and screwdriver on it. And you'll notice that your first option says thread tension. So if I go ahead and arrow to the left or to the right, that will, if I make it bigger, that's going to make the top tension kind of pull up a little bit more. And if I go to a smaller number, it will actually relax it. So then my bobbin is going to be stronger. It's going to kind of pull to the back side just a little bit. So that's what we kind of want on this straight stitch, where we're going to go ahead and notice that if it's at 4.4, the numbers are kind of all the same color as that bar, but as soon as I start to change it, they kind of get highlighted by the white around the numbers, so I know I've changed it. But 4.4 to 4.2 is not going to do much for you. You need to change it something. You need to, I always say a whole number to see if you're actually going to get the results you're looking for. So even if we kind of took it down to the 3.6 or 3.4, which would be about a whole number worth, and let's go ahead and just stitch that real quick, and we can sew from this screen here and actually see and adjust as needed so we don't have to keep flipping back and forth. Now as I look really close, so what I'm going to do, here we are, looking better. Yep, actually that kind of just helps pull that a little bit more. What I want to do is have those threads link more in the middle of my fabric. So what if I want the threads to pull to the back side? So for example, on a zigzag stitch or even a decorative stitch. So for example, if we went ahead and go to row number 4, and even to just picking the first decorative stitch, you notice they kind of preset the stitches to be less tension, so that is going to pull the threads to the back side and make it so it looks prettier on the top. That's what the idea is here. So we'll just go ahead and just sew out one of these. Remember, we have our turquoise thread in our bobbin, so we'll see if we need to adjust it anymore, because these threads are not the same weight. That's what people run into, is when you really need to change the tension. So I am getting a little bit of turquoise up top, but that's because the thread that I have in the top is much thicker, much stronger than the thread on the back. I should be seeing more maroon thread on the back side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just adjust it real quick. So we're going to go down. Let's go down to 2.6. And sew one more of these and see if we see the result. So here's what I usually tell my students is if you can't remember which way to actually turn the tension, higher or lower, one will make it better and one will make it worse. So see how we have a lot more threads pulled to the back side? That's what we want, because if you see it on the back, then you know you're not seeing it on the front. And that's what we're looking for a better looking stitch. So make sure that if you're using good quality thread, if you use it the same top and bottom, you really don't have to worry probably as much with your tension, but as soon as you put something heavier or thicker in your bobbin than what you have up top, you might have to kind of balance it out. Again, the only thing that you're changing with the tension is the top thread. The bobbin thread actually stays the same.